So he sent me a WhatsApp and said, Mario, didn't you see your emails? And I said, no, what's in there? Well, me and Rick are organizing this course in Miami, and we'd like you to come. And that's it. And I said, man, they are asking me to be professor in this course. And then I called to my wife, I called to Dr. Davis, I called to some friends of mine. And then I thought to myself when I was talking to my father, wait, maybe he's just offering me like a free pass for his course.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Rhinoplasty podcast with me, Dr. Cameron McIntosh. So today is very special because it's the last episode of season 2. Ladies and gents, it's been fantastic to do another recording of the Rhinoplasty podcast this season. And for the month of September, which is our last month of season 2, the theme is Hola, South America. So I have lined up somebody very special as our last speaker. This is a guy who I think has got a super bright future in rhinoplasty. He is already punching way above his weight. Even though he's a little guy, he's very sharp. But it's really such a pleasure to welcome all the way from America in Brazil, none other than Mario Ferraz. Mario, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you very much, Cameron. It's an honor to be here because I was checking all the superstars in rhinoplasty was in your podcast. You did something very, very special, very great, and no doubt for an Olympic athlete. I think you were the only person able to do that, to put all the people together. Thank you very much for this kind invitation,
Mario. No, man, it's cool. And it's cool to end off. It takes a lot of work, but it's nice to, I'm inspired by all the stuff you do. And I think it's like an apt way to finish the season is to chat to a guy who's also very involved with education of rhinoplasty. Now, I dial back to having kind of seen you at a few conferences, but really the time that it stood out with me was, Carlos Neves' course, his face course in Lisbon.
Yes.
It was in 2019, just a few months before I sat the board exams for facial plastics in Washington, and you were very involved there. So yeah, that's where it dials back to. So let's start off with this, is for the listeners, a little bit about your journey for where this all started to now being so involved with rhinoplasty around the world.
Well, it's not like a just one day decision. It's like, as you said, it's a journey that little by little comes to change us on our pathway. So it started in medical school. My father is a doctor, and I grew up in the middle of a medical family. All my two brothers are also involved in medicine. One is gynecology, the other one is ophthalmology. So I decided to do otolaryngology after being involved with the thoracic surgery and also neurosurgery. I was the one who created the league in the university about neurosurgery. And after a while, when I had to choose which specialty to follow, I thought a lot, and I picked otolaryngology because it was a very broad field, and I was not sure what really I wanted to do. In my last year of medical school, I've been to Massachusetts General Hospital. I did a clerkship for 1.5 months in Harvard. And I always thought about plastic surgery, but because I like it to draw, I liked it to paint. But when I thought about plastic surgery, I never considered it because I thought it was like a van thing. It was not a medicine. So yes. In this clerkship, I went there to know more about otolaryngology, but I met a guy, Mark Cheney. Probably he doesn't remember me, but all the situation. And I thought there is this guy in otolaryngology who performed plastic surgery, facial plastic surgery, but not only cosmetic. He did clefts. He did reconstructive stuff as cancer and all the other stuff. And I said, man, that's what I want to do. And then when I got in otolaryngology, I got in otolaryngology thinking about being a facial plastic surgeon. That's how it started. And as time goes by, I finished my otolaryngology. I did my fellowship with Ted Cook and Tom Wang in USA. But before going there, I had 3 months left. And I decided to go to south of Brazil, where I met Dr. Wilson Davis. In fact, my professor in the university, in the residency program, she pointed me, you must go to Wilson Davis. And who's this guy? Because he was not among all the university stuff. And I said, wow, that's the only place I have to go. And I went to Lajeado, south of Brazil, just to prepare myself for my fellowship in Portland. And when I was there, well, this guy was amazing. He did all this stuff. He did facelift. He did blepharoplasty. And how I got in love with Dr. Davis was because he founded a place for cleft lip and palate patients. He started a foundation that today is the 4th biggest foundation for cleft lip and palate treatment in Brazil. At the time I was there, we had like 4,000 patients. Now it's more than 10,000 patients in treatment. So it's amazing. So I got, no, I like this guy. and I think he liked me too. And we started like a very nice relationship. So he prepared me to my fellowship, but regarding to rhinoplasty, he taught me the wrong way because I learned how to do what they call today preservation rhinoplasty. And I started my journey learning preservation rhinoplasty. When I went to US, I presented to everyone like, oh, this is amazing. This is another way to do rhinoplasty. And they, no, it doesn't work. No, that's a bullshit. Nobody cared about me. And that's okay. And when we can come back this, let me answer how we end up with rhinoplasty. Then I came here and I said I was invited for conferences and courses because I was a young guy, had a very nice background because I spent 4 years traveling around the world, working with many surgeons. And when I came, I had like many new knowledge. So they put me to speak in conferences, in Congress. But everyone talked about rhinoplasty. So I started to talk about reconstruction. I started to talk about facelifts and all the about cleft lip and palate treatment. But, patients came. In the beginning, I had more facelift patients. But then people started to know me by rhinoplasty and everyone wanted to come for rhinoplasty. And I said, well, let's focus on rhinoplasty. And that's how it happens. It was little by little by little.
Yes, and it's years of work to be an overnight success.
And Wilson Davis always told me, Mario, you are going to everywhere. You are going to do facial paralysis, microtia, cancer reconstruction, but you will end up like me. You will do rhinoplasty and facelifts. And the guy was right,
That's awesome. Wow. So one of the questions I had is about the cadaver dissection course you've been running with Dean as well. How did you end up with him coming to Brazil? And he's sounds like he's coming quite often.
Well, you're talking about Carlos and the course in Lisbon. So yes. I know Carlos was here and he told how we met. And then after we met in Portland, we became like the best friends. It was like I knew him for all my life, and we end up becoming like brothers. And I took him to come to Brazil and see this amazing guy, Wilson Davis. After I went back to Brazil, I spent one more year doing my second fellowship, the full year with Wilson Davis. And then I went back to Lajeado because I was in charge of the cleft and lip cleft clinic, cleft foundation. So I made a lot of surgery. And Lisbon. Carlos started to invite me to see the co-director of his course. So I helped him to organize these dissection courses in Lisbon. And then I thought, well, let's move it to Brazil. And we made all the arrangements with the guy who provided all the cadavers, and we brought all the system to Brazil. And I started to do dissection courses. It started very, very small. The first course was like 14 people. And Carlos was my co-director here. So in Portugal, I'm his co-director. In Brazil, he's my co-director.
Yeah.
And I started, the first course was 14. The second course, we had like 30. And I thought to myself and with him, let's gonna make it a little bit bigger. And my dream was to bring Dr. Dean Toriumi to a cadaver course in Brazil.
Yeah.
And I said, well, probably he will not.
Dari, I have the same dream to still bring him to South Africa.
And I said, he will not accept, but I'm going to try. And I started to call him and write to him. And he said, well, that's okay. I'm going. But he was like a few words in the beginning, and oh my goodness, I'm going to announce Dean Toriumi and everybody will get so excited. What about if this guy doesn't come? And I was, till the day I saw him in the lobby of the hotel. And then I could breathe relief because I had 250 surgeons to watch him. And I was like very, very anxious. And he came. Wow. It was wonderful, an amazing course. I think he was very, very happy. He liked to be here. We did a course based on dissection, lectures, and he made a surgery, a live surgery. It was a revisional patient because the topic of the course was multi-revision surgery and what's the last frontier or something like that. And then we got more in contact. And this year he and Rick Davis invited me to be the third person in this course. It was amazing. When he first called me, because I'm very difficult to check my emails. So he sent me a WhatsApp and said, Mario, didn't you see your emails? And I said, no, what's in there? Well, me and Rick are organizing this course in Miami and we'd like you to come. And that's it. And I said, man, they are asking me to be professor in this course. And then I called to my wife, I called to Dr. Davis, I called to some friends of mine. And then I thought to myself when I was talking to my father, wait, maybe he's just offering me like a free pass for his course. And then I write to him, so what exactly you wanted me to do? And I want you to come and teach the preservation, what you are doing, revision, how the way you do. I said, man, this is real. And that's how it ended up. And I had a really good time with him and Rick Davis. Like, playing with the two, like, masters, giants in rhinoplasty.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
Great.
It was great.
Sure. Okay, Mario, it's so interesting to me hearing these like what happens in the background. Tell me, how have you managed your family life with your practice?
Well, I try to manage it in a manner I don't lose my kids infant period. I want to see they growing up, so I try to be the most time possible with them. We had like a bad time, which it took me out from the courses and conferences for 2 or 3 years. My first child, he didn't speak, so he had like a language delay. And I took it to some experts, and well, it may be an autism spectrum, it may be blah blah blah. And I said, well, but I think this guy is very intelligent because he reads numbers, he knows what is happening. Oh, that's another problem. Maybe he's and I lost 11 kilos, and I'm not like a fat guy. So it was like 3 years of concern. And then this guy just started to speak. And, he started to look to your eyes. And 2019, during the first preservation in Nice, I went to Dr. Saban and I said, Dr. Saban, I'm not very well because of this. Relax, it happens the same with my oldest son. And you're going to see, these guys who takes a long time to speak, they usually are smarter than the other ones. And thank God it was what happened. Wow. My boy is like amazing, very, very intelligent. But it kept me for 3 years apart. Of course, I went to the programs, but I was not like focused. And I think this, Cameron, just made me to especially devoted to my family. So I try to spend the most time possible with them. I love rhinoplasty. I love facial plastic surgery. Of course, I want to be successful, but it changed my life this 2 or 3 years period. Yeah, and thanks God, it was just like an alert. It was anything more serious.
Yeah. No, 100%. Okay. So let's talking about focus. I want to come focus a little bit more on the whole preservation side of things. Because I'm considering maybe doing a whole preservation podcast thing, but from your perspective, I mean, having visited Wilson more than 10 years ago, I'd really want to know what your go-to techniques are in terms of preservation on the one hand, and on the other hand, possibly like, because it's a thing that around the world, people are kind of jumping on the bandwagon. So what would kind of some of your cautions be and some of your encouragements be around preservation? So it's the 3 things. Is your preferred techniques, what things are to be careful about, and how to encourage people around preservation.
Okay. So my journey started in 2005. That's where I learned preservation. I learned it before learning structural rhinoplasty. And what happened? For almost 8 years, I performed only preservation. But it was what today I call pure preservation, which is just make your bone cuts, just working your septum and low the dorsum. We could not really move and change the shape, the intrinsic shape of the dorsum. Why? Because we didn't know what we know now. All the anatomy rebirth of rhinoplasty made us to look in a very special way. And because I couldn't change all the noses around 2014 and 15, I started to go more and more to structural rhinoplasty, especially because of the social media. People saw the noses in social media and wanted more refined nose from the beginning. They want to take the tape and see a nice smooth and refined nose, which I could, not only me, no one could get with the early techniques in preservation. It's not the technique, because I do the same technique, but with some refinements. And then I stopped. I never stopped, but I just decreased so much my rate of preservation that I was doing like only 20% of primary cases preservation. And when we had the first preservation meet in Nice, everyone was expecting me to say, because I had a long journey in preservation, and I said, man, I'm just doing 20% because I have problems with radix, maintenance, and everyone like, whoa, what's happening? But then with all these new surface techniques, like the ballerina, we did this technique we called lateral split for many, many years with Dave's, but were really shy. We just undermined it a little bit between the bone and cartilaginous vault, but we didn't detach all the way down the piriform ligament, so we could not change it, and we end up putting like some grafts on the radix and some grafts on the supratip. That's so. I'm just telling that so people know exactly what happened in the way. So when we had like a dorsal like this, we had to low. We didn't do that and low. We just low like this. We could not change it. And with all this new perspective, and especially with the possibility to use the surface techniques like the precision rhinoplasty, as Emre Ilan in Istanbul always advocates, using the drills and the piezo and the cuts of the piezo and the ballerina maneuver. So all of this just changed my perspective. And now I went back to 100% preservation. So answering your question, I'm not answering it exactly in the same way you asked it, but first, to encourage the people. I think it's an amazing technique, but you must master it completely. Well, but Mario, I'm a beginner, so just follow what I wrote in a paper like 2 years ago in facial plastic, like avoiding problems with preservation. The best indications for preservation. I think that's the name of the paper, and where I point the real, very best indications, where if you make something wrong, it will get better with preservation. So very thin and height radix, very thin nose, tension nose, not too convex. And that's, I explain exactly the noses you should start. After a while, and I call it pure rhinoplasty. After a while, if you master the drilling, the reshaping of the pyramid, the ballerina maneuver, all the osteotomy, additional osteotomies you can do, you can expand a lot your indications. And today, I practically do in 100% of my primary cases. Even I wrote the paper, don't do nigroid noses. Even in the afro or mestizos noses, I'm doing, and I getting some good results. And you asked me about my preferred techniques. The spar septopyramidal adjustment and reposition. We published in 2013. It was the way Dr. Davis did with some modifications I published at that time. I published it in a Brazilian paper because no one wanted to accept this technique, these different techniques. And I know some other friends who performed preservation had the same issue because it was not considered a good technique at the time. And I used the SPAR B, which is a low strip technique. I use a SPAR A, which is a high strip technique. Those are my two preferences. anytime I have septal deviation or deviated nose, I tend to use the SPAR B. If I have like a straight nose, I tend to use the SPAR A. And in some cases, for a mild deviation, I use the Tetris. But I like to use the lateral Tetris, which is you cut like we described it. In fact, it was Carlos' idea. I was in the paper just as a reviewer, but we cut like the Tetris, and instead of fixing it face to face, I put it like lateral. That's how Carlos always called like lateral Tetris, and it helps me a lot with mild deviation. So these are the three techniques I use the most. So to encourage, how about the cautions people have to take? I told you, read the paper and just be very cautious with some types of noses. Too low radix, because if you make the wrong, what you can have if you make it wrong, you can end up having a too low radix, a widening of the middle third, and a recurrence of the hump. So if you is starting, just try to avoid a too low radix, wider noses, and also very, very sharp humps. Prefer to work with a height radix, with a flatter noses. You want just to make it lower, so because you are not very used to deform the nose, so try to choose like a straight dorsum, and if possible in functional patients. It works very much for functional patients, especially males who are not very concerned about the shape of the nose. And this is my advice if you are starting. If you want to take a step further, go and learn how to reshape your dorsum, all the drill and burrs instruments and techniques, learn how to use the piezo, learn how to do the ballerina maneuver. So, and dissection courses are great for that. And you have a lot of dissection courses. You have it in Portugal, in Spain, in Austria. It's another place people dissect it very much. You have in US, you have in Brazil. We have courses on dissection all the year long. For the next year, we'll have like one per month. So people who want to learn have all these possibilities all over the world. And it really works if you master the technique. It's the best dorsums ever because you have a continuity between the bone and the cartilaginous vault. You will not able to reconstruct it perfectly if you do, like if you take the hump and especially for deviated noses. For deviated nose, there is no other technique better than to preserve the K area and to move the K area on block. Oh, I spoke it too much.
A few months ago when I visited Dean Turiomi as well, and I saw him using this technique to straighten a deviated nose, it just blew my mind, and I just love it. It's so interesting.
And for deviated nose, it was really great because I told you I started with preservation and working in Davis Cleft Lip and Palate Foundation. So we had the worst deviated noses ever. And in 2005, we were doing that. And I went back in 2007. I used it very often for cleft lip and palate patients because it was the only way to put the nose straight. Just a reminding. Sorry.
No, it's amazing. It's so interesting, eh? Sure. So, guys, today's episode is brought to us by Galderma. Don't even have to tell you any more about Galderma, but thank you for them for enabling this whole month of all our South America. And it's actually bringing us to the end of the season. And I have to take this moment just to say thank you to all the different companies that have enabled it. And I'm going to kick off right at the start. I mean, we started in February with MedHold, and we had all the guys from Australia in there and Yongju. And then we went over to Allergan sponsoring March. Wow. Goxel was in that. I remember Goxel being on a flight to Nice when I had to do the interview with him. And then Marina Medical helped us out and supported us in April. Carl Storz came through in May. Vectra was the support in June. Medtronic in July. Last month in August, Pentax, Loops, and now Galderma. So to all those companies, thank you, the trade, for supporting this podcast. It goes out to literally around the world. More than 70 countries are listening to this. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so we've got that out. The last question I want to ask you, Mario. So you must have had some bad times. I know that 2 years that you were traveling so much was difficult. But in the OR, I want to know a little bit more about Carlos. Yeah, he told me the funniest story about when in his podcast about his nurse having to assist in the and do the rasping because they had a big party. Tell me a few of your funny moments that have happened in your career so far.
I had some funny moments with very well-known surgeons in Brazil and also abroad, but it was not on OR. And I'm thinking about some of these moments. I have two very nice moments, but it must be off record, so I'm not gonna tell. I tell you later after you. Okay. Yes. Stop recording. I tell these two stories. And I have a story with Carlos in Vienna with Davis when he married me with his brothers, and we saw with Alessandro when he showed why he is a superhero, why he is the Iron Man. So I have these three stories. Do you want to tell all of them, or you want to just to pick one of them and?
Well, you got to remember this is for people around the world, so you got to pick carefully. We don't want these guys' secrets to come out.
Those are safe stories. No, that's not.
I want to hear all three of them. Okay, I want to hear all three of them, please. These guys are. We've listened to all of them on the podcast.
So Alessandro. Well, everyone knows him, and he claims he's very like Tony Stark. In fact, in some years ago, he shaved like Tony Stark, and he got the same glasses as Tony Stark, and he indeed looked like Tony Stark. And well, he called me one day, and we are chatting. And I live in Campinas. I live in Campinas area, but now I live in a small city close to Campinas because I want to make my. That's where I grew up. Well, it's a smaller city. I want to my kids grow here, and that's it. But he called me, and we started to chat. And hey, Alessandro, you studied here, right? Oh yes, I studied in PUC, and I studied in Unicamp, State University of Campinas, and these were the only two universities in this big city, and they were like rivals. They are always in the sportive. Championships. They were always beating each other, and that's okay. Oh, that's nice. And man, it was a bad time when people started to find. They met in bars and they started to fight. Alessandro, I had a problem in one of these days. I was dating a girl from your university. And we dated before. I went to State University of Campinas. She went to PUC. And I went to one of the first parties when I was in medical school. And then the guys from his university came and pointed the fingers in mine. Oh, you did that, and started to spank me and started to beat me up. And then showed up a guy in the last year of medical school and stopped everything and helped me and saved me and my girlfriend at that time. Stopped the fight. And do you know who is him? Because you are 6 years older than me. Probably he was in the last year. Probably he was in your... Man, I can't believe that. It was in Café Cancun. And I said, yes, it was me. I was the guy. I remember you were the guy who was being beaten up. And I said, yes. And he said, man, I don't believe how life is so amazing. And I said, oh, so you are my superhero. You are really a superhero. You are really an idol man. So that's the first funny story. So the second one was when I was, I've been to Portland and I went back to Lajeado and I brought that's another girlfriend. Yes, that's another girlfriend who became my wife. And and at that time, Davis, he did all the stuffs in face plastic surgery plus breast implants. He used to do breast implants. So I took my girlfriend to update her, just to improve, to put some implants. And after we went to his place in a very on the mountains in Rio Grande do Sul. I took this my girlfriend. She is, because she became my wife. She is a lawyer, an attorney, and there I met Romero, one of his brothers, one of the brightest men I have ever known. He has like dual PhD, one in Max Planck Institute, the other one in California Institute, and Fernando, who is a professor in the psychology university, and Dr. Davis, the three brothers. And then I was like in the beginning of my relationship, kind of uncomfortable. And then Homero just showed up with like an overall, a black overall. He put some white paper here and pretended to be a priest. And because he speaks Latin, he started to do like a discourse in Latin. And we are here to make the wedding of these two young couple with these two person. And meanwhile, Dr. Davis were making with a champagne wire like two rings. And then I was like, wow, what's going on? Well, we are here to celebrate this wedding, blah, 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 blah. And Mario, do you accept? And it's joking. Yes, I accept. And now she's better with like the breast implants. No, now I want to get married. And Deborah, do you blah? Yes. And I said, wow, okay, it was finished. And I told her, well, it's just a joke. And she said, no, legally, you are married. And no, it's not possible. Yes, for the Brazilian law, you just need one person to celebrate the wedding. You have testimonies. We have Dr. Davis and wife. We have Fernando's and wife. You have to do the right words. We have the rings. Legally, we are married. And I said, my goodness, it was a trap. And, but, I got so scared, and she was right. It has like legal power. But then we got married, and that's finished. So it was my wedding trap. And the last one with Carlos in Vienna, he was making a dissection course. I had finished my fellowship. I moved to Europe. where I stayed with Dr. Palma, with Sabon, with Dr. Inácio Tasca, and also with other experts. And I was there, and he called me, I'm going to Vienna. Do you want to meet me there? And let's go to Vienna to meet Carlos. Okay, we were there. I was a student. I didn't have such amount of money, and I don't have where to stay, Carlos. No, you can stay with me. And then we got there, and well, there's a problem. The person in the hotel cannot know you are in the same room. Otherwise, they will charge us. And that's a very expensive. Okay. It's like it was like a 1, 2, or 3 stars, and it was not a fancy hotel, but everything was too expensive at that time in Vienna. And okay, so I'm going to chat with and flirting with the girl who is there. He was not married at the time. And I was like, talk to the lady and blah, 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 blah. You go crawling under the balcony of her table. She will not see you, and you go to the room number, blah, blah, blah. I went there. When I got there, he went to meet me. And Carlos, there is just one bed, and it's like a single bed. How we are supposed to sleep here? Well, and it was so freezing in Vienna. And he said, I have an idea. And there's one blanket. Well, one of us have the pillow and the blanket and sleeps on the floor. The other one just put your coats and has no blanket and no pillow and sleeps on the bed. That's okay? Well, that's okay, because you're paying the hotel. You started with the bed. And we did that for 3 days, every night after being around in Vienna. He went to the lady. He started to talk. I crawling. And then we switch it. The first night he was on the bed. The second night I was, and he was on the floor. And that's another episode. It was part of
so funny,
of my stories in facial plastic. It was nice.
Yeah, Mario, it's great. It's such an apt finish to the podcast. Just laughing about these things. I love it. It's really cool. Sure, man. Thank you very much. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for what you're doing for Rhinoplasty and just the fresh way you're going about it. It's such a serious, intense operation, but to have some humor involved is wonderful.
May I do an invitation for you and for many other people? In November,
100%,
I'm
please.
Organizing. Carlos is my co-director, as I told you. We are planning this next Rhino Anatomy course. It's the 4th edition as a special edition. It's a tribute to Wilson Davis. And the topic is preservation in Brazil. We have all the special names. We have Samost. We have a Fausto from Mexico. We have Carlos. We have Saban. We have Peter Pagliazzi. We have Goxel. We have Boris. All of them confirmed. We have from Brazil Ishida, from Colombia Roxana, and also Lucas Patrocinio, Gustavo. And in online, we have Dean Toriumi to present the push-up. So it's a special edition. We have all these masters in São Paulo in 11 to 13 November. And I'd like to invite everyone to make this tribute to this very special guy. And I wanted to invite you to come. And if you can come, we can make a special edition of your podcast. We can put all these guys together and make a special podcast on preservation. It's gonna be
that's
the dissection
cool.
course.
Wow,
and preservation. So everyone who's is invited.
So it's called the Brazilian
preservation in Brazil. Is preservation in Brazil.
The name of the preservation in Brazil.
So I try to bring all the preservation circles.
That's fantastic.
To Brazil.
So thank you. Yeah.
And we,
maybe in 10 years.
We'll talk about all the details after we finish here. But thank you very much, Cameron. It was a pleasure to be here. When you made the invitation, I got like, man, it's gonna be. I'm very anxious for that. And then I started to hear some of the more recent podcasts, and I felt you usually made all your invitates very comfortable, and I said, man, it's gonna be fun. As I told you, I didn't open a beer because it's too early in Brazil.
That's cool.
I just taken my breakfast. Thank you very much for this, and what you are doing. It's cool, a great thing.
Thank you, guys, and thank you to. That's cool, and thank you to all the listeners, guys. So that brings us to the end of season 2 of the Rhinoplasty podcast. Thanks for listening.